Hello, mathematicians. Today we're going to start out with an estimation activity. So your job is to figure out how many blue rocks do you think are in that vase or cup. Remember, estimate using the visual clues and the mathematical strategies that we've been talking about. How could you estimate knowing that you can't see all of them? Teachers pause while students write down their estimate. If you're at home, write down your estimate on a piece of paper and then hit play again to get your next clues. Okay, so I'm going to reveal one clue at a time. After each clue, pause and re-estimate, changing your estimate to match the clue and making it more precise. Our first clue is the answer is 1 less than a multiple of 3. So if we sing our 3 song, 3, 6, 9, it will be 1 less than that. So it could be like 2, 5, 8, so 1 less than a multiple of 3. If your estimate does not fulfill that criteria, go ahead and make a new estimate. Our next clue is the answer is an odd number. So now it has to be 1 less than a multiple of 3, but also an odd number. So we could eliminate the 2 and the 8 because those are not odd numbers. If we kept going, pause and make your next estimate. Our next clue, the answer does not include the digit 3. So there is no 3 in the tens or the ones place. If your answer has a 3 in the tens or ones place, go ahead and refine your answer. Next, clue 4. The answer does not include the digit 7. So again, there can't be a 7 in the ones place or in the tens place. If your estimate has a 7 in the ones or the tens, come up with a new estimate that fulfills all the first criteria. And clue 5. The answer does not have a 9 in the ones place. So no 9 in the ones place. Go ahead and make your final answer, your estimate that you are going to lock in. Here we go. Here is our solution. 65 would be our solution. So if we go through our clues, the reason 65 has to be our answer is because it has to be 1 less than a multiple of 3. So I underlined all those numbers in green. Then my next clue said it has to be odd numbers. So I went through with my blue and I crossed out all the even choices. Then the answer does not include the digit 3. So I circled in red all the ones that have the digit 3 in them. So those can't be considered anymore. It cannot have a 7 in it in either digit. So I got rid of the 71, 73, 67, 79. And the answer does not have a 9 in the ones place. So 59, 79, and 29 would be eliminated. So if I look at the choices that I still have left, it could have been, so 50 is an even number, so I needed to cross that one out. Really the only option that I have would be 65. Okay. Our which one doesn't belong. Go ahead and figure out which one doesn't belong. Use your hand signals to tell me which one you think doesn't belong and why. Think about some of those things words we've been using in variable, greater than, less than, equal to, true, false, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So come up with at least one that you, at least 2 things that you think don't belong and why. Teachers pause, and if you're at home, pause and come up with your answers. Our learning target for today is I can represent real-world situations using equations and inequalities. So remember, real-world situations means I could represent something that was happening like a story using equations. Remember, that means equal signs. And inequalities, that's what we've been talking about. Greater than, less than, not equal to, and then if we say greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Okay, so Today we're going to build on everything we've been learning in algebra thus far. We are going to be translating words into math expressions and equations. Just like when we're translating from English to Spanish in Spanish class, we're going to use numbers and math symbols to translate written words into math sentences. So if we think about it in a picture, we start out with words. So you'd read something, then you're going to think about the symbols that are going to replace those words so that eventually you'll come up with an equation or an inequality that would take in those words and translate it into an equation or an inequality. So when we're doing this, reading the words carefully and visualizing what is happening will really help you tremendously when you translate. Just like in Spanish, if you choose the wrong word because you go too fast for pencil, then your whole sentence is wrong. The same thing in math. If you don't think about what's happening, am I getting more? Am I getting less? Which operation would it be? Then again, your translation, the numbers and the symbols that you use aren't going to be accurate. Some vocabulary that you'll need to understand for this lesson are equality. Remember, we've talked about equality before. It's a relationship that means both sides of the equal side are equal. Okay? They must have an equal sign if it's an equality. Each side of the relationship has the same value, and there's always going to be an equal sign. There doesn't have to be the same number of terms on each side, but whatever you have on the one side has to equal the same amount as the other side when you calculate their values. An inequality. Now I've just added a prefix in front of it. So an inequality, we've talked about, is a relationship that is not equal. It's not balanced. One side is greater than or less than or not equal to the other. It does not have an equal sign. Each side has a different value. And again, here are our symbols. We've got our greater than sign, our greater than or equal to sign, our less than or equal to, or not equal to sign. Okay, we've got a variable. I hear that word vary in there. Variable, remember, is a letter that represents a value. If we're doing those puzzles, sometimes it could be a picture as well. Today we're going to use letters that correspond to our stories as our variables. So C might stand for cats. If the story is talking about cats, F might equal friends, and P might stand for pencils if the story is about pencils. Operators. I want you to think about what that word means again. When you operate on someone in the doctor's office, you are going inside them and fixing things. In math, the operators are those symbols that tell us what to do. The symbols in a mathematical equation or expression or inequality other than numbers. That plus, the minus, the times, the division sign. So those would be our operators, those things that we do to the numbers. So I want you to say this in your head, this expression. How would you say this in your head? So maybe you said add 3 to a number. So our variable n could stand for number. N plus 3 would mean add 3 to a number. You might have also said a number plus 3. So n stands for number plus 3. It could have also been the sum of a number and 3. Remember how we talked about sum was that word that meant answer when you add. 3 more than a number would be another way you could say that. And a number increased by 3. Because remember, if we increase, it's getting higher. If the temperature increases throughout the day, it's going up, up, up. Okay? Now let's look at this expression. How would you say this expression? Tell your table partner. Maybe you said, subtract 3 from a number. Notice how we have to start with the number because you're taking the 3 away. So it says subtract 3 from the number. A number minus 3. The difference of a number and 3, because remember, difference was that word that meant subtract. 3 less than a number. Or a number decreased by 3. Decreased means go down, down, down. I remember that because they both start with D, decrease and down. If the temperature decreases, it gets colder throughout the day. And take 3 away from a number. Okay, so we're going to either stand or sit depending where you think it goes. So if I said difference, stand if you think that means add, or sit if you think it means subtract. Difference was subtraction, finding the difference between. How about more than? Stand if you think more than means you're going to add. Sit if you think more than means you're going to subtract. Make your choice. More than means you're going to add. Okay? Minus. Stand if you think it means add. Subtract if you think it means, or sit if you think it means subtract. Minus is subtraction. Sum. Stand if you think the sum is when you add two numbers. Sit if you think it means subtract two numbers. Sum is that word we use when we add. Okay? How about decrease? Stand if you think that means add. Sit if you think it means subtract. If we decrease, we go down, 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 or take some away. That would be subtract. Fewer than. Stand if you think that means you're going to add. Sit if you think it means subtract. Fewer than means subtract. Less than. Stand if you think it means add. Sit if it means subtract. It means to sit for subtract. And how about increase? Is that sit for subtract or stand for add? If I increase, that's the opposite of decrease. Increase means go up, 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 so I would add. Okay, with your table partner, I want you to read. How would you translate these symbols and numbers into an expression that you'd say out loud? So read to your partner how you think you'd say this. Maybe you would say 3 times a number. You could have chosen 3 multiplied by a number, because n, remember, standing for number in here. The product of 3 and a number. Remember, product is that means answer when you multiply. So product we could use when we're multiplying. Triple a number, because 3 times, triplets, there's 3 kids born at the same time. If you get a triple in baseball, it means you go to third base. So 3 times a number could also mean triple. Now with your partner, read how you would say these two expressions. Maybe you would say 3 divided into a number. Maybe it would be a number divided by 3. The quotient, remember that's got that fancy word quotient of a number and 3. Or we could say 1/3 of a number. That kind of shows us the representation here where it's if we put a 1 on top, it would be 1/3 or a third of whatever that number was. So if you look at those options, which ones are the trickiest for you? Tell your partner which ones, the way you say them, are the trickiest for you. Now we're going to talk about words that show division or multiplication. So you're going to match the words to the correct operation. So everyone's going to stand up behind their chair, push in your chair. When I read a word, you're going to move to the right of your chair if you multiply, just because multiply is on the right-hand side of your screen, or you're going to move to the left if you think you divide. Okay, so here we go. Our first word is product. Would I multiply or divide, move? Product is that word when we multiply factor times a factor, we get a product. That's the answer when we multiply. Okay, what about if I wanted you to find twice a number? Would we multiply or divide? Move. Twice would mean you multiply times 2. Okay, next, what about shared? Shared would mean divide. If you're going to share your cookies or share your money with people, you're going to divide it. How about if I said times? Move right or left? times, 3 times or 2 times a number means you're going to multiply it. How about triple? If I say triple a number, triple means you're going to multiply by 3. What if I say doubled or double a number? I'm going to multiply it by 2. What if I say find half of a number? This one's kind of tricky. For us, we're going to be dividing it in 2 equal pieces. Or you could think of it as multiplying by 1/2, but we don't really know how to multiply fractions yet, so we're going to think about dividing it into 2 equal parts. Okay? What about divided by? Move right or left. It even has the word divided in there, so it's going to be division. How about if it says shared equally? A number shared equally between 3 people. Move right or left. That's going to mean divide. How about groups of? If I said 2 groups of 3, that means 2 times 3. How about quotient? Quotient is the answer when we divide. And how about multiplied by? Multiplied by is the same as multiple. This one, it's a trick question. It doesn't go to multiply or divide. Plus would be for addition. So if we look at these, quotient, we have to remember means divide. When we divide, our answer is called the quotient. When we multiply, our answer is called a product. So those are the 2 words that we're going to use the most, but the other words are also going to be used. And if we go back to our addition and subtraction, addition, remember when we add 2 addends, we get our sum. And when we subtract, our answer is called the difference. So those are those 4 key words that we use in algebra to tell us if we're going to add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So go ahead and grab your whiteboard. I want you to translate these words into mathematical symbols. So Jackson has J TikTok likes for his video. How would we represent that? For that one, I'm just going to say J. Or actually, we usually use lowercase letters, so I would use a small j. That shows me how many Jackson has. Ella has 10 fewer TikTok likes than Jackson. 10 fewer. What did fewer mean? Is she going to have a bigger number than Jackson or a smaller number than Jackson? Abrielle has 14 more likes than Jackson. 14 more. So now, I want to think about, we have to think about, again, making that mental image. Who's going to have the biggest number? Who's going to have the smallest number? How would we write Ella's likes compared to Jackson's? If Ella has 10 fewer likes than Jackson's, write it on your board. Well, we know Jackson is going to have J, but Ella has 10 fewer, so we have to take away 10. 10 fewer than Jackson. Okay? Abrielle says Abrielle has 14 more likes than Jackson, so we take Jackson's likes. She has 14 more, so we're going to add 14 to that. So this is how we would translate those equations, this is how we would translate those words into algebraic symbols. Okay, write this one on your board. 6 more than a number. So I'm going to think number. That's going to be my variable. Okay, so I'm going to think of number because it's 6 more than that, so I'm going to add 6. N plus 6. Next one, a number plus 4. How would you write that as an expression? Go ahead and write it. Again, N is going to stand for number. That's my variable. Plus 4. Plus 4. Next one, write it down. 12 minus a number. So now I start with 12 and then subtract or minus that number. A number shared between 3. If I'm sharing my cookies or my money, I'm dividing, but it says a number is shared, so I have to start with my number divided by 3. Or it could be n over 3. Both of those say the same thing, they're just two different ways to write it. 3 shared between a number. This one's very similar to number 4, but the way order of the words changed. So we have to think about how would we reflect 3 shared between a number when we write it. Well, I have to start with my 3 because it says 3. The 3 is going to be shared between a number, then the n would have to go next. Or if I wrote it as a fraction, 3 divided by n. So I want you to look at those. Which one is the trickiest for you? Tell your elbow partner or your table partner. We're going to practice writing expressions now in terms of n. N is going to be our variable that stands for number. So triple a number. Go ahead, write it down on your whiteboard. When I triple, I multiply it by 3, so I could have it touching 3n, or I could do 3 times n as well. Next one, the sum of a number and 6. I got to think about sum. What was that? What did that mean? What operator do I need if I'm finding the sum? Go ahead and write it down. Sum means that I'm adding. So the sum of a number and 6 would be n plus 6. Next one, the product of a number and 7. So I got to think product. What is that telling me to do? Product was when I multiplied. So I'm going to say n times 7. I could have made it times 7 like that, and I could have just write 7n as well. Next, the quotient of a number and 8. So now I'm going to say a number divided by 8 is going to tell me my quotient. Because remember, quotient is the answer when we divide. The difference of a number and 5. So if I think about difference, it's the difference in our heights or the difference in our scores. I need to subtract. So the difference of a number and 5 would be n minus 5. So if we look at those words, sum, product, quotient, difference, I want you to pick the one that's hardest for you, and then I want you to look at it and say it over 3 times and say like difference, subtraction. Difference means subtract. Difference means subtract. So you pick whatever one is hardest for you and say it out loud 3 times. Okay. So now we're going to write an expression and we're going to use y as our variable. So here's our little story. Last year the price of gas was y dollars. Now it is $2 cheaper. Okay, so last year it was y dollars. Now it's $2 cheaper. So if I think about cheaper, is it going to cost more or less? So I'm going to think y, $2 cheaper last year minus $2 is going to tell me what it cost this year. Y minus 2. Next, Henry weighed y pounds when he was born. Now he's now 4 times heavier. Henry weighed y pounds when he was born. He's now 4 times heavier. Okay, so go ahead and write down how you think you'd write that down using y. So if I think about Henry starting out as y pounds, now he's 4 times, not 4 pounds heavier, so 4 times heavier. I'm going to multiply it by 4, or I could also say 4y. Tori's younger sister gets y dollars allowance. Tori gets $2.50 more. Okay, so let's think about her younger sister. Her younger sister gets y dollars, so I can put that down. Tori gets $2.50 more. Well, if she gets more, I'm going to add $2 more. And number 4, write a story for the expression y divided by 5. So tell your partner a story that you could use for that. I could have thought about Mrs. Carlson has y cookies. She's going to share them with 5 friends. And that would be y, which is my total number of cookies, sharing with 5 friends would be dividing by 5. Okay? So if I go back to our learning target, I can represent real-world situations using equations and inequalities, and we did some expressions today as well. Where do you think you rate on that? Number 1 through number 5. Just show me in front of you. If you need to work on it a little more, then this would be something that before the test you're going to want to review a little bit more later this week. Later this week we'll be having the test, and there will be some examples like this on there. At-home learners, go back and look at your Google Classroom to see what your assignment is. In-class learners, have your teacher will explain what you should do next.